scene 3 of Act 3. Let's go back to a part we discussed just a little bit yesterday before we ended. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern enter with the king, and you can tell they've been talking as they've been walking. I like him not, nor stands it safe with us to let his madness rage. That is, the king is saying, it's not safe for us being that imperial royal we, okay, to let his madness range. Therefore prepare you. I, your commission, will forthwith dispatch, and he to England shall along with you. The terms of our estate may not endure hazard so near us, as doth hourly grow out of his brows. And you got, stuff there about what all that means. But what's he really saying? He's going to send Hamlet away with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Does he say in this little speech to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern what he's plotting? No. Right? So they say, we'll do what we can. We will ourselves provide. Most holy and religious fear it is to keep those many bodies safe that live and feed upon your majesty. It's kind of disgusting language, right? To keep safe those many bodies that live and feed upon your majesty. It's not, he doesn't mean, Guildenstern doesn't mean that they're parasites. Okay? But, isn't that what parasites are? Things that live and feed off of other bodies? What does he really mean by it? Who lives and feeds upon the body of the king? His subjects. Everyone that is below him. If you live in this kind of monarchical society, the health of the king is the health of the society. If the king's in danger, everyone is in danger. Okay? So notice they say it is a most holy and religious fear. Why? Because of the medieval, late medieval, early Renaissance doctrine of the divine right of kings. That the king or queen rules by divine right. God has instituted, okay, the monarchy. And therefore, because God has instituted the monarchy, the person who is king inhabits a position that is protected by God. Okay? The single and peculiar life is bound with all the strength and armor of the mind, Rosencrantz says, to keep itself from annoyance, but much more that spirit upon whose will depend and rest the lives of many. Notice, he's talking about, in the first part of that, a particular individual. Okay? That individual, go back, the single and peculiar life is bound with all the strength and armor of the mind. That is, the individual is bound and protected by their mental abilities to keep itself from annoyance, that is, from harm. He's saying it's up to the individual to keep himself from harm. But much more that spirit upon whose will depend and rest the lives of many. That is, the king. The cases of majesty, the cess of majesty dies not alone. And your gloss tells you cess means the decease of majesty, the death of majesty, dies not alone, but like a gulf doth draw what's near it with it. It is a massy wheel. Think of those countries around the world today that are still monarchies. And I mean monarchy, I don't mean like Great Britain. The monarchy in Great Britain is essentially useless. It's a figurehead. It doesn't do anything. I mean, those monarchies where the king or queen really has power. And you could even say countries that aren't literally monarchies, but where the ruler really has power. You know, Russia, Putin. Yeah, I know, Putin, you know, Russia has an elected body to the Duma and all that. They're powerless compared with Putin. Okay, so what's he saying? The decease of majesty, the death of majesty, dies not alone. If a king dies, it's not just the king that dies.
The kingdom as well.
Yeah, it means the kingdom is thrown into danger. Going on here. Okay, but like a gulf doth draw what's near it with it. What does it mean, like a gulf? Think this. What happens, this is water, and you come across one of these, a whirlpool. What happens on the outside edges? Things start to swirl, right? It's like a black hole. Closer you get to that black hole, what happens? Gravity gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Therefore, the harder and harder and harder it is to get out. So he's saying the death of a majesty, the death of a king, is like a gulf that draws near what's with it. Okay? What is nearest the king in this society? Or let me put it another way. Who is nearest the king?
Son.
Okay? Who's right next to the king?
Queen.
Gertrude. Okay? Who's right beneath her? Okay, Hamlet. Let's leave Hamlet aside for a moment because they're talking essentially about Hamlet. So who's after Gertrude? Who's closest to the king? This king.
The advisor.
Polonius. After Polonius. How much interaction have we seen between Laertes and the king? Yeah, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. So if you're going to kind of trace this level of hierarchy, you'd have Claudius, and then immediately beneath him, Gertrude, Polonius, Rosencrantz, and Guildenstern, and you could keep going on down till you have Voltimand and Cornelius, etc. What are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern talking about? What happens if the king is in danger?
They're in danger.
Yeah, exactly. Their position. Because after all, other than friends of Hamlet, what is their job? What is their duty? That's what the king's kind of having them do. But before they were spies, they're courtiers. They live off the largesse of the king. So if the king is gone and there's not that largesse anymore, when Henry VIII became king in 1509, he was 18 years old. And he was a stud. I mean, he was ripped, he was handsome, he was brilliant. His father, Henry VII, had died. Very first thing Henry VIII did, he executed his father's two most trusted advisors, the two most powerful men other than his father. Why?
Because they get positive influence over other people.
Exactly, because he was saying, I'm in charge. I will take advice from whom I will take advice. He was putting his stamp on the kingdom. He was also showing he was going to be a ruthless SOB, okay, which he was. So, Guildenstern, or is this Rosencrantz? It doesn't matter which order you include them. And frankly, it doesn't matter which one is speaking because they both essentially say the same. This is Rosencrantz speaking. He says, it is a massy wheel fixed on the summit of the highest mount, to whose huge spokes 10,000 lesser things are mortised and adjoined, which when it falls, each small annexment, petty consequence, attends the boisterous ruin. If what's at top falls,
Everything else falls.
everything underneath it, yeah, because he's saying all these other things, what? Hang from it. They, let's use a word that we tend not to use in its real meaning, they depend upon it. What does depend literally mean? Hangs from. So if you depend upon somebody, that means you hang from them. Means you have everything you need, in whatever the particular case is, from them. So to be independent means to not hang from anybody. To be totally self-sufficient. Now, there's nobody that is independent, truly. Right? Because none of us generate our own electricity. None of us make our own clothes. None of us go out and slaughter our own meals. Or raise all our food. Or dig a well so that we have water. You could do everything else, but unless you're collecting rain or digging the well, you are still dependent upon somebody else. So, the king says, arm you, I pray you, that is, prepare yourselves for this voyage. And they say, we will. And they leave. Polonius comes in and says he's going to his mother's closet. Behind the arras I'll convey myself. He likes to hide behind curtains, right? And I'll hear the process, and I'll warrant she'll tax him home. That is, she'll get the truth out of him. And as you said, and wisely was it said, 'tis meet that some more audience than a mother, since nature makes them partial, should overhear the speech. That is, she won't hear everything. Because she's a mother. Her mind is gonna kind of soften the rough edges. I'll hear it all. The king, thanks. Polonius leaves. Claudius has what? A soliloquy. Okay? This is a soliloquy. And what does he say? That is, he reveals his mind to the audience. What is going on in his mind? What's he say? I am a dirty, rotten SOB. I mean, look at the opening. Oh, my offense is rank. It smells to heaven. It hath the primal eldest curse upon it, a brother's murder. Primal eldest. Primal, what does that mean?
Animal-like.
Okay, we think animal-like. No. Comes from prime.
The head.
The head. The first. The first eldest curse. Which was? Cain and Abel. Exactly. In the Jewish Old Testament. Cain and Abel. Cain slays his brother Abel. Why? Because Abel's sacrifice is acceptable to God and Cain's isn't. What Cain is really doing is he's trying to strike out at God. But because God's too big, he's going to strike out at the one God has favored. Okay? Pray can I not, though inclination be as sharp as will. That is, I want to pray, I'd like to pray, but I can't. My stronger guilt defeats my strong intent, and like a man to double business bound, I stand and pause where I shall first begin, and both neglect. He's saying the exact same thing Hamlet said in one of his earlier soliloquies. After he has the interview with the players, and the players leave, and Hamlet talks about, look at this guy. He sheds tears over Hecuba. What is Hecuba to him? And then Hamlet goes on and he talks about how the mind in reason does what? to the native hue of resolution. He says, thought casts paleness. Okay? And he says, here I have something great to do, and yet I don't do it. The king's saying the same thing. I have something great I need to do. I need to fall down on my knees and pray, and yet I don't. What if this cursed hand were thicker than itself with brother's blood? Is there not rain enough in the sweet heavens to wash it white as snow? Okay. This is an image that Shakespeare is going to use later in Macbeth, when Lady Macbeth is responsible for several deaths. And there's a scene where she's sitting there and she's scrubbing her hands, trying to get a blood spot out. And she's going, out, out, vile spot. Out, out, damned spot. And it won't leave. Shakespeare saying she can't absolve herself of the guilt of this murder. Notice what Claudius says here. What if this cursed hand were thicker than itself with brother's blood, covered? Isn't there enough rain in the heavens to wash it clean? Whereto serves mercy but to confront the visage of offense? That is, what's the purpose of mercy? Other than to, what's your clause say? To oppose directly the visage of offense. He's asking, what really is mercy? Okay, that's a theological question. That's not a sociological question. And what's in prayer but this twofold force? To be forestalled ere we come to fall, or pardoned being down. That is, what is the efficacy of prayer? But this twofold force, it has two kind of efficacies, or two means of doing things. The first one, to be forestalled, prevented before we fall. Okay? To stop us from doing what we shouldn't do, or to be pardoned once we're down. That is, to be pardoned once we've messed up. Then I'll look up. Why? Because he's saying, I'm down. I've fallen. I've sinned. So, I'll look up. My fault is past. What's the fault? The murder of his brother. That's done. That's in the past. Can't be taken back. But oh, what form of prayer can serve my turn? That is, so how will I pray? Forgive my foul murder? Cannot be. Why? Since I'm still possessed of those effects for which I did the murder. That is, I can't ask God to forgive me for the murder. Why? Because I'm still enjoying why I killed him. Meaning, I still have the throne and his wife. My crown, mine own ambition, and my queen. May one be pardoned and retain the offense? Yeah, can I have my cake and eat it too? Okay. What's he saying? Can you steal $100 from somebody and go to them and say, I'm sorry, I stole your money?
But keep the money.
Yeah, but keep the money? Can you take somebody's car, steal it, drive back to them and say, hey, I'm really sorry that I stole your car. Zip on away? What does that say about your contrition?
You don't really care.
You don't. You're not contrite. You're not really sorry for it. In the corrupted currents of this world, offense's gilded hand may shove by justice, and oft to seen the wicked prize itself buys out the law. What's he saying? Every one of us has seen an example of what he's talking about in the news. Here's an example, to just pick one out of thin air. Al Sharpton. Everybody in here knows who Al Sharpton is? Okay. He's a quote-unquote minister from New York who has an MSNBC TV show. In 1987, he was guilty of charging the police with rape of a young girl, which never happened. Never happened. He was found guilty of libel or slander, whichever the two is. Okay? He's now a bigwig in the Democratic Party on MSNBC, an unofficial advisor on race relations to Obama. He owes $4.5 million in taxes to the government. It's widely known. It's been in the press on liberal stuff and conservative stuff. The IRS knows where he lives. It knows where he runs his businesses, each of which also owes taxes. If David owed $4.5 million in taxes to the IRS, would he be sitting here? No. He'd be in jail. So why is one person not in jail and the other one in jail? Because of power, because of influence, because of prestige. And, and I'm not picking on Al Sharpton. The former Secretary of the Treasury, Tim Geithner, little Timmy Geithner, okay, as one person calls him, Tim Geithner was nominated as Secretary of the Treasury and approved by the Senate, even though he had back taxes owed. Secretary of the Treasury. This is the guy ultimately in charge of the IRS, who hauls people into court, takes away their homes, takes away their belongings for not paying their taxes. Okay? Why did he get a pass?
Power and influence.
Because of power and influence. That's what Claudius is talking about in these couple of lines. Okay? In the corrupted currents of this world. He means in the kingdoms of this world. This is what happens. But 'tis not so above. There is no shuffling. There the action lies in his true nature. In other words, there you don't get to pull a fast one over God. Why? Go back to the minister's black veil. Because there, we don't get to hide stuff from God. God sees everything perfectly, clearly. And we ourselves compelled, even to the teeth and forehead of our faults, to give in evidence. He's talking about what the Bible talks about will happen when? On the day of judgment. The language that is used in both the Old Testament and in the New Testament is the day of judgment will happen. Paige will stand up, she'll come before the throne, and the book will be opened. And what's the book? It's the pros and cons that I've talked about before. Here the pros and cons, however, will be, what are all the good things you did? And this is the language that Christ uses, and it's the language in the book of Revelation and everything in between. It's not what did you believe? It's what did you do? Good things? Bad things. Did you, use that example of existentialism I used earlier, did you push the old lady in front of the bus, or did you walk her across the street safely? Did you help people in need, or did you say, screw them? They should have made better choices. All right? What then? What rests? That is, What do I do now? Try what repentance can? That is, test, see what repentance is able to do? What can it not? What can repentance not do? What does repentance mean? What does it mean literally to repent? It means you're going in this direction, and you repent means you switch directions. You go the exact opposite of what you were doing. Okay? Yet what can it, that is, what can repentance do when one can't repent? Biblical example. Some of you may be familiar with this. On the night Christ is betrayed, two people betray him. Right? Who's the first one? Judas Iscariot. He sells out the location of where Christ will be to the Pharisees, to the Sanhedrin. Who's the other one who betrays him?
Peter.
Peter, the apostle. Okay. What does Judas do as a result of his betrayal?
He commits suicide.
He commits suicide. What does Peter do as a result of his betrayal? The third time he betrays him, Christ looks at him. The cock crows. He remembers, before the cock crows, you'll deny me 3 times. And Peter runs in tears. Does he commit suicide? No. He's repentant. Because after the resurrection, before Christ finally leaves on the ascension, they're at the Sea of Galilee, and 3 times Christ asks Peter a question. He doesn't ask it of any of the other disciples. Anybody remember what the question is? Peter, do you love me? 3 times. Why? 1 for each betrayal. I tell you, I do not know him. I do not know the man. I am not one of his followers. And he runs in tears. So 3 times, Christ is essentially saying, okay, I'm going to give you a shot at redeeming yourself. Okay? What can it do, and what can it when one cannot repent? Fathers of the early church say Judas could easily have been redeemed. Only he thought the rock he created was too big for God to move. He thought his sin was so great that not even God could forgive it. Okay? O wretched state, O bosom black as death, O limed soul, that struggling to be free art more engaged. Help, angels, make essay, that is, make attempt. Bow, stubborn knees, and heart with strings of steel, be soft as sinews of the newborn babe. All may be well. And he falls down on his knees. What's he doing in these last couple of lines? He's making himself repent. Does he still, quote unquote, feel it? No. But I'm going to get in the position. I'm going to fall down. And that's when Hamlet enters. Hamlet doesn't hear any of this previous speech. Okay? Because what might he think if he had? He's not really repenting. I'm going to kill him right now. Now might I do it. Now, he is praying. Whoa. Now, and he goes to heaven, and I'm revenged. Well, that would be scanned. That is, wait a second. I need to parse this. I need to stop and think about this a little bit more. A villain kills my father, and for that, I, his sole son, do this same villain sent to heaven. Where's the revenge in that? This is higher in salary, not revenge. That is, this is being paid to do a job. struck my father grossly, full of bread, with all his crimes broad blown. And now, how his audit stands, who knows? That is, how my father is judged, only God knows. But in our circumstance, in course of thought, that is, as we see it from our perspective, what is our perspective? It's limited by our bodies, it's limited by our lifespan. We don't see so well, do we? Not in the grand scheme of things. We humans, especially in our own little puny lives, tend to be very, very tunnel vision focused. We look at what is going on in our little life and what we're trying to get out of it, and we don't see the broader picture. So, Hamlet says, but in our circumstance and course of thought, 'tis heavy with him. And am I then revenged to take him in the purging of his soul? When he is fit and seasoned for his passage, seasoned, made ready, prepared? No! Up sword, and know thou a more horrid hint. Seizing, or occasion of seizure. When he's drunk, asleep, or in his rage, or in the incestuous pleasure of his bed. At game, that is, playing dice, or swearing, or about some act that has no relish of salvation in it. Let me find him when he's doing some rotten, horrible, foul sin. Then I'll kill him. Right? That his heels may what? Kick at heaven. Okay, if his heels are facing heaven, where's his head faced? Downwards. And that his soul may be as damned and black as hell, whereto it goes. What's Hamlet assuming the part of in that statement? God. God. Because only God decides who goes to heaven and who goes to hell. Really pissed me off. Just a little example. Really, really angered me. When President Obama announced that the SEALs had killed Osama bin Laden. And again, I am far right-wing conservative. Okay? For example, most of the people running for president on the Republican side, they're not conservative enough. Okay? Ted Cruz is, he's a limp-wristed namby-pamby, as far as I'm concerned. I think Genghis Khan. Mike Huckabee, who's running for president, announced on the day that Osama bin Laden was killed, may he rot in hell forever. Now, I doubt that many people in this room, had a lot of love for Osama bin Laden, but whether you did or not is irrelevant. Here's my point. Whose job is it to say where someone goes? And God's alone, if one believes in God. That's it. We might say, yeah, but because of everything. Yeah, from what? Our narrow, time-constrained, little perspective. Okay? Am I saying it was wrong to send the SEALs after? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it was wrong, frankly, for anybody to make the kind of statement that Huckabee made, and, here I'll say it was wrong, for people to be throwing parades that day. And this is because of my own theological beliefs. I don't think we should celebrate the death of anyone. I don't care who. Child molester, multiple rapist, serial murderer, we shouldn't celebrate their death. Why? That person was unique. That person was a one-in-a-lifetime event.
That person, like we talked about the minister's life, how that person lived. They lived.
And is forever gone. Okay? J.R. Tolkien uses this image for people. That person was think of the light coming from these lights. It's white light, right? What happened if I were to bring in a prism? What could we do with that white light? You shine the light through the prism, and what does it do? It refracts it into the colors of the rainbow. Okay? Tolkien uses this image. God is the white light, and every person is one little thin sliver refracted from that light. So, I kill David. What happens to that spectrum of colors? It loses a color. Okay? You kill somebody else, you lose another color. I know, it's theory. But when you think about it, what does it mean? It means with all lives together, and you start to lose them, and some die every day, obviously, life gets a little less what? Rich. A little less rich. Okay? Hamlet leaves. And what does Claudius do? He gets up off his knees. My words fly up. My thoughts remain below. Words without thoughts never to heaven go. What does he mean by thoughts? Yeah. Are his words sincere? No. He's saying that his words are essentially like, I'm going to use another biblical metaphor, and it's because this play is the most religious of all of Shakespeare's. It's the parable of the Pharisee and the publican. What does the Pharisee do when he goes into the temple to pray? Oh, great and mighty God, I am so thankful that I follow all the laws, I obey all the rules, and I'm not like that filthy, dirty, rotten publican there. Great words. What does the publican do? He comes in, he falls flat on his face, and says, God, forgive me, a sinner. And Christ says, which one of them left the temple justified? That one. Okay? Claudius is the Pharisee. His words go up, but they're not heard. So we get scene 4. Polonius comes in, tells Gertrude he's going to hide in the closet, or behind the arras. And so Hamlet comes in. And one little thing I should point out here, Shakespeare in this scene, and in a couple others, plays upon the difference between thou, thee, and you, your, or thy, or thine. That's the form for this. Okay. Plays upon the difference between those two forms of pronouns. Here's why, or here's how he does it. If I don't mix this up. By Shakespeare's day, people weren't using the thou, thee in everyday ordinary speech. It was you. Sometimes ye, okay, but not a lot. But it still served a purpose in literature. Because in the Middle Ages, you had these two forms simultaneously. Okay? And they indicated a different way of addressing somebody. Either a formal or an informal way. Okay? The formal way was this. Like, you're speaking to a superior. You would say you. You're speaking to a child. You would say thou. Or you're speaking to your child. You would say thou. Sometimes the child would speak back using this. Because this also refers not only to informal, but closeness. Okay? The formal implies distance, however. So, look at what happens here. Hamlet comes in, and she says, Hamlet, thou hast thy father much offended. Thou. It's informal. She's talking with her son, whom she loves. And he says, Mother, you have my father much offended. Okay? Now, is he merely being formal, addressing his superior, his mother?
No.
He is partially.
Oh,
Okay, so what else is he doing?
he's putting distance.
Yeah, he's showing there's an emotional gap between himself and his mother. Come, come, you answer with an idle tongue. Notice how she responds in kind. She switches from thou to you. She picks up on that little change. You know, it's like the room suddenly drops 10 degrees. Come, come, you answer with an idle tongue. In other words, don't you use that tone with me. I brought you into this world. I can take you out of it. Go, go. You question with a wicked tongue. How now, Hamlet? What's the matter now? Have you forgot me? No, by the rood, that is, by the cross. That's an oath. Not so. You are the queen, your husband's brother's wife. And would it were not so, you are my mother. Would means I desired. I desired it were not so. Nay, then, I'll set those to you that can speak. Come, come, sit you down, you shall not budge. You go not till I set you up a glass where you may see the inmost part of you. In other words, take a seat, mother. We're going to have a talk. And you're not going to leave until I reveal to you things about yourself that you don't really want to see. What wilt thou do? Thou wilt not, notice, thou. Okay. Informal. Wilt thou do? Thou wilt not murder me. Help, help, ho! And Polonius behind the arras. What, ho? Help, help, help! Hamlet pulls his sword out. How now? A rat? Ugh! Dead for a ducat. Dead. Polonius falls. Oh, I am slain. What hast thou done? Hamlet, I know not. Is it the king? Notice he's going, please God, please God. If there is a God, let it be the king. Oh, what a rash and bloody deed is this. A bloody deed? Almost as bad, good mother, as kill a king and marry with his brother. As kill a king, aye, lady, it was my word. Lifts up the curtain and sees Polonius, thou wretched, rash, intruding fool. Farewell. I took thee for thy better. Take thy fortune. Thou find'st to be too busy is some danger. To be too busy? What does he mean? Yeah. To be too busy with other people's affairs. To be involved in other people's busyness is some danger. Leave wringing of your hands. Peace, sit you down. He's talking to his mother at this point. And let me wring your heart. She's sitting there going like this. Uh-oh, what's going to happen? Am I next? And he's like, calm down. For so I shall, if it be made of penetrable stuff, if damned custom have not brazed it so, that it be proof and bulwark against sense. He says, I'm going to wring your heart if it be made of penetrable stuff. Okay? The prophet Jeremiah says the heart is dark and hard. David, the king and prophet, ancient Israel, says that the heart needs to be broken for there to be real contrition. So Hamlet says, Gertrude says, what have I done? Why are you being so rude? What have you done? Such an act that blurs the grace and blush of modesty, calls virtue hypocrite, takes off the rose from the fair forehead of an innocent love and sets a blister there, makes marriage vows as false as dicers' oaths. She doesn't get it yet. What? What act? He says, look upon this picture. What's the picture of?
His father.
His father, Hamlet Sr. And on this, the counterfeit presentment of two brothers. It's a portrait of Hamlet Sr. and Claudius. See what a grace was seated on this brow, Hyperion's curls, the front that is the visage of Jove himself. An eye like Mars to threaten and command, a station like the herald Mercury, etc., etc. This was your husband. Now look at this one. Here is your husband. Like a mildewed ear, blasting his wholesome brother. He doesn't mean this kind of ear. Okay? He means like an ear of corn. Mildewed. Have you eyes? Could you on this fair mountain leave to feed Hamlet's father and batten on this moor? Have you eyes? You cannot call it love. For at your age, the heyday in the blood is tame. It's humble and waits upon the judgment. That is, mother, you're nearly dead. You didn't get married because of the passions of your blood. What judgment would step from this, my father, to this, my uncle? So what's Hamlet telling us?
She done it? Or she might be trying to get to
Should Claudius be great looking? No, he shouldn't. If the ghost comes out on the stage, because not all productions actually have the ghost on the stage, he talks him under the stage sometimes. But if he comes out on the stage, Hamlet Sr. ought to be really handsome. And Claudius, not so much. I don't mean he has to be ugly and disfigured and look like Quasimodo, walking around like this. Okay? But he shouldn't be handsome like Hamlet Sr. is. He says, no, what devil was it that thus hath cozened you at Hoodman blind, that tricked you? Eyes without feeling, feeling without sight, ears without hands or eyes, smelling, sans all, that is, without all, or but a sickly part of one true sense could not so mold. Oh, shame! Where is thy blush? Why aren't you blushing? Rebellious hell! If thou canst mutiny in a matron's bones, to flaming youth let virtue be as wax, and melt in her own fire. Hamlet, speak no more. It worked. Thou turnst mine eyes into my very soul, and there I see such black and grained spots as will not leave their tint. What's she mean? Like Judas, her soul is so black or so tainted, she says, those spots won't wash out. Nay, Hamlet's on a roll now. Nay, but to live in the rank sweat of an enseamed bed. Look at enseamed, line 93 or so. Loaded with grease, greased. I don't think so. There's part of that word that sounds like what? Semen. I think Hamlet is saying, in the rank sweat of an enseamed bed. Ew. Okay, first of all, it's rank. What does something that's rank mean? It stinks. It smells. It's foul. Sweat implies what?
Movement.
Yeah, man, they've been getting busy. Okay? Claudius and Gertrude have not just been, like Ricky and Lucy Ricardo sleeping on their sides of the bed with, like a board down the middle. Nuh-uh. Digging into the bed, they're grounding it out, as it were. And it's in semen. It's like there's body fluid. It's like a hotel room bed. Okay? Just point that out. If you've ever seen any of those, investigative reports, people going with blue lights into a hotel room that's supposedly just been cleaned, and what do you find? All over the place. Okay? Really don't want to go there. Stewed in corruption. Stewed. We tend to think, like you put a bunch of stuff in a pot and you cook it, and it cooks and cooks and cooks and cooks and cooks. That is one meaning of that. The corruption is just cooking. But it also refers to the stews, which is a place in every town. Today we call it, or we used to, the red light district. The stews were the whorehouses. Okay? He's calling his mother a whore. Stewed in corruption, honeying and making love over the nasty sty. Where do we use the word sty? Thank you. Pigs. They are like pigs rutting, making love. Pigs don't make love. They make pigs. In what? In their filth. Yeah. Okay? I mean, he's just both barrels. A murder and, speak to me no more. These words like daggers enter into mine ears. No more, sweet Hamlet. And it's like he can't stop now. A murderer and a villain, a slave that is not 20th part the tithe. Okay, what is a tithe? It's 10%. He says Claudius is not a 20th part of 10% of your preceding lord. A vice of kings, a cut purse of the empire. Blah, 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 blah. No more. And the ghost enters. Why does the ghost enter? Yeah, Hamlet's getting too close. He's going too far. What did the ghost tell Hamlet? Leave your mother alone. Let God and conscience take care of her. Because he's just, a king of shreds and patches. He just keeps going. And then he says, what would your gracious figure? He sees the ghost. He turns and speaks to him. Alas, he's mad because he's no longer looking at her. And yet he's talking to somebody. Do you not come, your tardy son to chide, that lapsed in time and passion? Let's go by the important acting of your dread command. Oh, say, do not forget. He says, but look, amazement on thy mother sets. Oh, step between her and her fighting soul. Conceit in weakest body, strongest works. Speak to her, Hamlet. What does he mean? Calm her down. Hamlet, speak nicely to your mother, or what might happen? She might go the way of Ophelia. Act 4. How is it with you, lady?
But him saying, like, what's up?
Yeah, exactly. So, how you doing? After he's, been saying all this, calling her a whore and semen. And she's like, how is it with you, Hamlet? Because he's been talking to the air. You do bend your eye on vacancy, and with the incorporeal air do hold discourse. Forth at your eyes your spirits wildly peep. And as the sleeping soldiers in the alarm, your bedded hair like life and excrements, start up and stand on end. So she says, here you are, you're talking to airy nothings. Your eyes have kind of a strange look to them. It's kind of like Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream, fine frenzy rolling. And what has happened to his hair? It's like he stuck his finger in a light socket. His hair is standing up on end. Or if you've ever been outside just before a rip-roaring electrical storm comes in, okay? Or tornado. She says, O gentle son, upon the heat and flame of thy distemper, sprinkle cool patience. Calm down, boy. Peace. Whereon do you look? What are you looking at? On him! On him! Look you how pale he glares. His form and cause conjoined. Don't look at me, lest with this piteous action you convert my stern effects. To whom do you speak thus? Do you see nothing? Nothing at all. Nor you didn't hear anything? No, just ourselves. Why, look you there, how it steals away. And Hamlet sees the ghost leaving. Just like my father. This is the very coinage of your brain. In other words, like the poet, the madman, and the lover, Hamlet has created something out of airy nothing, Gertrude says. Gertrude says, there's nothing there, Hamlet. There's never been anything there. Ecstasy, come here. Come here. And he has her come, he says, feel my pulse. My pulse is yours, doth temperately keep time. If he was crazy, barking mad in this little scene, his pulse wouldn't be calm. It is not madness that I have uttered. Bring me to the test, and I the matter will reward, which madness would gamble from. Mother, for love of grace, lay not that flattering unction to your soul. What he means is, don't think everything I've been saying was caused by madness. No. That not your trespass, but my madness speaks. It will but skin and film the ulcerous place, while a rank corruption mining all within infects unseen. Think of that image. You get a sore, and it starts to scab over, yet there's infection inside. And what happens? Think of those flesh-eating bacteria. It just eats away. While on the surface, it looks okay. No. Confess yourself to heaven. Repent what's past. Avoid what is to come. Okay? Repent what's past. That is, everything prior to my saying, repent what's past. Marrying my uncle, whatever your involvement was in the death of my father, and from that moment till now, avoid what is to come. Well, what is to come? Is it bedtime yet? No, but it's getting close. So what's going to happen at bedtime? Claudius will show up. And he's saying, don't. Okay? Do not spread the compost on the weeds to make them rancor. In other words, don't keep doing what you've been doing. See, that's one of the kind of basic principles of repentance. Once you turn around and go in the opposite direction, it doesn't mean you can go back and do what you were doing before. Okay? No. Forgive me this virtue, for in the fatness of these pursy times, virtue itself a vice but pardon me. Hamlet, thou hast cleft my heart in twain. Throw away the worser part of it. That is, throw away the bad part, the dirty part, the foul part. Retain the clean, virtuous part. and live the pure with the other half. Good night. But go not to my uncle's bed. Assume a virtue if you have it not. What does he mean by assume? He doesn't mean assume or pretend you have one, though he kind of does. He means, I know you're a whore, mother, but act like you're not. Don't keep doing the same thing. Assume a virtue if you have not. Why? Because that monster, custom, who all sense doth eat, of habits devil, is angel yet in this, that to the use of actions fair and good, he likewise gives a frock or livery that aptly is put on. So what does he mean? Well, he tells us. Refrain tonight. Don't sleep with Claudius tonight, and that shall lend a kind of easiness to the next abstinence. The next, more easy. It's like stopping smoking. What's the hardest thing to do? To stop the very first cigarette. I've never been a smoker. I smoke cigars, but from what I hear, it's that first cigarette. Because once you stop that first one, you're what? You're one down. Or it's like starting a positive habit. Like starting a weight loss program. Or starting an exercise regime. If you want to start running, what do you have to do?
Run.
And then what do you have to do?
Keep running.
Get up the next day and run. And the next day. And what sports psychologists tell us is if it's like an exercise thing, if you do it every day for like 3 weeks, guess what you've done? You've created a habit. And after that 3-week period, it's second nature. That's what he means. Come on, Mom. 21 days, no sex with the vile snake. You can do it. I know you can. For use can almost can change the stamp of nature. That is, action. Now, think of this speech and apply it to Claudius's prayer. Because Claudius was saying much the same thing, and that's why he says, bend knees. Gets down on his knees. He prays. He gets up and he says, what the hell? Not going to do any good anyways. Look at what Hamlet says. It will do good if what? You keep at it. Notice, assume a virtue if you have not one. And what will happen? Eventually, you will become virtuous. Nature will be changed. Once more, good night. And when you are desirous to be blessed, I'll blessing beg of you. For this same Lord, and he points to Polonius, I do repent. He never meant to kill Polonius. But heaven hath pleased it so to punish me with this and this with me, that I must be their scourge and minister. Who's the there? Polonius and the king, and people like them. He must be their scourge and minister. What's the difference? It's perspective. It's perspective. Okay? Scourge is the perspective of one being scourged. One being tested, one being tried, one being refined. Minister is the perspective of that doing the ministration, that doing the refining. Because what does the minister do? Serves someone else. Angels and ministers of grace defend us. He's using synonyms there. Angels are ministers of grace. They are bringing grace. Hamlet is here saying, I am a scourge and minister. How's he ministering? He's cleaning up the kingdom. Okay? So, the queen says, well, what shall I do? Not this by no means that I bid you do. Let the bloat king tempt you again to bed. That is, don't let him do that. Pinch wanton on your cheek. Okay. Every time he's saying, you're tempted, pinch yourself. Call you his mouse, and let him, for a pair of reachy kisses or paddling in your neck with his damned fingers, make you to ravel all this matter out. That I essentially I'm not in madness, but mad in craft. He's saying, when your fat slob of a husband comes to you and starts pinching you and playing with you, tell him this, that I'm not in madness, but mad in craft. What does he mean? This is an artful madness. He's only partially mad. Okay. Can you be partially mad? No. You're either crazy or you're not crazy. And what I mean by that partially is like, you're not only mad in one aspect of your being. You're completely mad. Okay? So, 'twere good you let him know. Why? For who, that's but a queen, fair silver wise, would from a paddock, from a bat, a jib, such dear concernings hide? Who would do so? That is, he's going to expect the truth from you. So, in despite of sense and secrecy, unpeg the basket on the house's top, let the birds fly, and like the famous ape to try conclusions, in the basket creep and break your own neck down. It's all just to say, tell him what I'm telling you. She says, I will. Hamlet, you know I'm on my way to England. Have we been told that? No. So Hamlet has heard something. She goes, oh, that's right, I forgot. Hamlet gives us some information. There's letters sealed, and my two schoolfellows, whom I will trust as I will adders fanged, they bear the mandate. Adders fanged. Rattlesnakes is what he means. He's going to trust them like he trusts a rattlesnake. They bear the mandate. What's the mandate? The orders that are in the letters. They must sweep my way. That is, they must prepare my way and marshal me to knavery. Let it work. That is, let them try. For 'tis the sport to have the engineer hoist with his own petard. That is, look at your gloss, to have the engineer, the constructor of military works or artillerymen, hoist, blown up, with his own petard, defined as a small engine of war used to blow in a door or make a breach. So, what's he saying? 'Tis the sport to have the engineer hoist with his own petard. Who's the engineer he's talking about? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. They're going to be hoist, blown up, with what? Their own engine, their own bomb. Okay? Hamlet's telling us they're going to get what's coming to them. Oh, 'tis most sweet. When in one line two crafts directly meet, this man shall set me packing. I'll lug the guts into the neighboring room. Mother, good night. Why? So that you don't have to sleep in your bedroom with a corpse. Because that would be kind of strange. So we get Act 4. King and Queen come in with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. And the king asks, how's Hamlet? Mad as the sea and wind. When both contend, which is the mightier? In his lawless fit behind the arras, he killed Polonius. Oh, indeed. It had been so with us had we been there. 2 words, damn straight. And that's what Hamlet hoped it was. His liberty is full of threats to all. That is, if Hamlet has freedom to move, everyone is in danger. Alas, how shall this bloody deed be answered? That is, how will it be recompensed? Who will pay for it? How will it be responded to? It will be laid to us. That is, we're going to be blamed for it. Whose providence should have kept short, restrained, and out of haunt this mad young man. Laertes is going to come back and he's going to say, King, this is your fault. You knew Hamlet was mad. You should have locked him up. Where is he? To take the body apart. Not dismember it, but to remove it somewhere else. And so the king says, oh, Gertrude, come away. The sun no sooner shall the mountains touch, but we will ship him hence. And he's got to go off to England. And he calls in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. He tells them, Hamlet's killed Polonius. Find him. Find what he's done with the body. Okay. We get another room in the castle. Hamlet's there. He says, kind of wipes his hands. Safely stowed. That is, I've taken care of the body. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern come in. They say, what have you done with the body? Compounded it with dust, whereto 'tis kin. Compounded it means I've made it part of, made it one with dust. Whereto 'tis kin. Why is it kin with dust? Because dust thou art, and to dust shalt thou return. God says in his curse in the book of Genesis. Tell us where it is so that we can take it and bear it to the chapel. Why? Because Polonius needs to receive a Christian burial. Do not believe it. Believe what? That I can keep your counsel, not mine own. They're like, what? Take you for a sponge? What are you talking about? Aye, sir, that soaks up the king's countenance, his rewards, his authorities. Hamlet says, you, Rosencrantz, are a sponge. How? You soak up the king's countenance, meaning you're always in his presence. And you soak up his rewards, and you soak up his authorities. That is, you have authority granted to you by the king to do certain things. But such officers do the king best service in the end. He keeps them like an ape and apple in the corner of his jaw, first mouthed to be last swallowed. That is, he's saying an ape with an apple will take a bite of the apple and then it'll stick the apple in the back of its mouth. Keep eating the bite and eat other stuff. And then it'll come back and eat the apple. He's saying, that's going to be you in the king. You don't understand. Kings eat up courtiers. I don't understand you. I'm glad. Where's the body? The body is with the king, but the king is not with the body. Hamlet is here playing on, Shakespeare's playing on, Renaissance political theory that the body politic, the state, the country, equals the king. Queen Elizabeth had several speeches where she talks about herself being England. Like she is all England. And all England is she. The king is a thing, my lord, or nothing. Bring me to him. So the king comes in, new scene, says, I've sent to seek him to find the body. Rosencrantz, Guildenstern come in. They say we can't. He won't tell us where the body is. Guards enter with Hamlet. Hamlet, where's Polonius? At supper. At supper. Where? Not where he eats, but where it is eaten. A certain convocation of politic worms are e'en at him. Okay? Earlier, yesterday, seems like a week ago, I mentioned the name Martin Luther. Founder of the Protestant, initiator of the Protestant Reformation. Okay? In 1531, to be specific, not 1531, 1517. On October 31st, 1517, Martin Luther nailed to the church door at Wittenberg, where Hamlet is a student, 95 theses. These are 95 arguments, 95 points to be discussed. He's an Augustinian monk. That is, he's a monk of the Augustinian order. These are points he wants to debate because he sees problems in the church. He wants to clean these problems up. He doesn't want to destroy the church. He doesn't want to break it apart. Okay? One of them, for example, is the medieval doctrine of indulgences. An indulgence was a piece of paper that you could purchase that would buy you time out of purgatory. Okay? They were issued by the popes. You could buy them for varying amounts of money that bought varying amounts of time out of purgatory. And the doctrine becomes so corrupt, it's corrupt in its essence, but it becomes so corrupt by Luther's time that there is an indulgence seller by the name of Johann Tetzel, John Tetzel, going around through Germany, and he sings a little song as he carries his brass plate with him. And he says, as soon as the coin in the coffer clinks, the soul from purgatory springs. You drop your money in my jar and bingo, you get a dead family member out of purgatory. Okay? As long as it's the right amount of money. Okay? This really pissed Luther off. For one, leaving all the theological reasons out. Because all that money was going where? To Rome. To build St. Peter's Basilica. It wasn't going to the church in Germany. Okay? So, Luther nails these 95 theses for debate. Nobody takes him up on it. And then he starts writing tracts and articles and pamphlets and such. And in 1521, he is invited to a convocation, or what is called the Diet at the town of Worms. The Diet of Worms, the Diet of Worms, a convocation of worms. What did Hamlet just say? A certain convocation of politic worms are e'en at him. Right? Look at your gloss down here. Allusion to the Diet of Worms, 1521. At this Diet, at this convocation, this meeting, the Holy Roman Emperor, who invited Luther to come, said, because Luther wouldn't agree until he got this provision, I give you a grant of safe passage. That is, you will be allowed to come, have your say, and you'll be allowed to leave safely. No one will stop you, arrest you, imprison you. Luther says, okay. He goes. Luther thinks he's going to get his opportunity to debate the 95 Theses. Instead, he gets there, and there's a table, and on the table is everything Luther has written in the last 4 years. And he's given one option. Take it all back. Recant. All of it. Say you were wrong. Luther says, give me the night to think about it. He comes back the next day to pray about it. He comes back the next day and says, unless it can be proven to me by Holy Scripture or by my conscience, here I stand, I can do no other. That is, no, I'm not going to take it back. Why? I'm not wrong. I'm right on all of this. He leaves and he's kidnapped. He was granted safe passage. He's kidnapped by his friends. And they take him to the castle at Wittenberg, and they lock him in the castle, and he spends 6 months there. Okay. These are his friends. They do this for his protection. Okay? While there, he translates the Bible into German. Why? So that everybody in Germany can have the Bible in their own language, so that they can read it for themselves. Because prior to this, only available in Latin. And you had to speak and read Latin in order to read it. Because Luther said, you don't need all this hierarchy. You don't need cardinals and archbishops. You don't actually really even need a priest. You and the Bible will get you to heaven. That's all you need. Okay? So, that's all background. So, where is he? He's at a convocation of worms. What does he mean? I buried him. The worms are eating him. But not literally. Your worm is your only emperor for diet. We fat all creatures else to fat us. Right? Those of us who eat beef, they fatten up the cows. Why? So that you get nice, thick, rich, juicy steaks. They fatten up the pigs. They fatten up the chickens. They fatten up the geese. Every meat source you eat, okay, that is farm raised is fattened up to do what? To fatten us. And we, and here Hamlet just turns the whole thing on its head. And we fat ourselves for maggots. In other words, into what purpose? Because we're all going to die. Your fat king and your lean beggar is but variable service. 2 dishes, but to 1 table. That's the end. What's the end? The 1 table. What's the 1 table? Death. Your fat emperor and your lean beggar, guess what? They're the same thing. We're all equal when we die. They just become 2 different kinds of dishes for the maggots. One, you get a little bit more meat to eat off of. The other one, you have a little bit less meat. Okay, alas, alas. Is he saying alas, alas because he thinks Hamlet's so far gone? Or is he saying alas, alas because he just said, wait a second, I'm a king! And you're saying I'm the same as a beggar? How dare you? A man may fish with the worm that hath eat of a king, and eat of the fish that hath fed of that worm. Okay, think about that statement for a moment. Is it false? No. A man may fish with the worm that hath eaten of a king. If that worm, in its travels throughout the earth, goes into a grave that held the corpse of a king and moves in the body of that king and eats part of that king, and you then catch that worm, you put it on a hook, you bait that hook, you catch a fish that eats the worm, you are then doing what? Eating the dead king. What do you mean? The king asks. Nothing but to show you how a king may go a progress through the guts of a beggar. The king may go a progress, that is a travel through the guts of a beggar. Well, what does go through the guts of a beggar? And how does it come out? What's Hamlet saying about the king? You piece of shit. That's what he's saying. Okay? You really got to get that in your mind. Where's Polonius? in heaven. Notice, the dirty, rotten, busybody sticking his nose into my business, he's in heaven. Hamlet doesn't say Polonius is in hell. Send thither to see. If your messenger find him not there, that is, if I'm wrong and he's not in heaven, seek him in the other place yourself. Such great wit. But if indeed you find him not within this month, you shall nose him up as you go up the stairs into the lobby. Out the door, take a left, up the stairs. That's where he is. Go get him. Hamlet, he's going to stay till you come, don't worry. Hamlet, this deed for thine especial safety, the ship's ready. You're going to England. Aye, England. Aye, Hamlet, good. So is it if thou knewest our purposes. I see a cherub that sees them. In other words, I have kind of special vision. Hamlet saying, you think you're going to pull one over on me? But come, for England. Farewell, dear mother. And he puts on this happy face kind of show. Thy loving father, Hamlet, Claudius says. My mother, father and mother is man and wife. Man and wife is one flesh. And so my mother. Okay? Everybody leaves but the king. So he gets a soliloquy. And what does the king tell us? Well, Hamlet doesn't know this, but those letters that they are bearing to England for me, the letters say, kill him. The present death of Hamlet. Do it, England, for like the hectic in my blood he rages, and thou must cure me. Why does Denmark say England must do this? Because England owes tribute. Okay, then we get scene 4. A plain in Denmark. Fortinbras. Who is Fortinbras?
King of Norway. Well, the Prince of Norway.
Prince of Norway, son of the former king who was killed by the former king of Denmark. Okay? Fortinbras comes in, and we see Hamlet, Rosencrantz, and Guildenstern. They're making their way to the docks. Hamlet talks to the captain. And the captain tells them what they're doing. And Hamlet says, line 25, 2,000 souls and 20,000 ducats will not debate the question of this straw. This straw, this insignificant, trifling matter. This is the imposthume of much wealth and peace that inward breaks and shows no cause without, why the man dies. So everybody leaves and Hamlet's left alone on the stage. Okay? We're told 2,000 souls, 20,000 ducats will not answer the question of this insignificant trifle. And Hamlet says, oh, how all occasions do inform against me. Occasions, circumstances, situations, and spur my dull revenge. His revenge is dull. Why? Because it's slow. What's a man? If his chief good and market of his time be but to sleep and feed. Remember what he was talking about with the king? Feeding and dying. A beast. That is, if the chief good and expense of a person's time is to eat and sleep, then he's nothing more than a beast. If that's all you get out of life, you're not a human. Sure, he, God, that made us with such large discourse, looking before and after, gave us not that capability and godlike reason to fuss in us unused. Fuss means like to rust, to go to waste in us unused. We are meant to use our gray matter, Hamlet says. Now, whether it be bestial oblivion, or some craven scruple of thinking too precisely on the event, a thought which quartered, that is, drawn into quarters so that it can be closely examined, hath but one part wisdom and ever 3 parts cowards. I do not know. Why yet I live to say, this thing's to do. This thing is to do. What's the thing? Kill Claudius. What's Hamlet getting at? Why haven't I acted? Examples gross as earth exhort me. Look at this army here. What are they doing? They are led by a delicate and tender prince, whose spirit with divine ambition, puffed, that is, blown up, made large, makes mouths at the invisible event, exposing what is mortal and insured to all that fortune, death, and danger dare, even for an eggshell. In other words, Fortinbras is willing to risk 2,000 lives and 20,000 ducats for what? Nothing, essentially. For nothing. For a miserable plot of land that serves no purpose. Rightly to be great is not to stir without great argument. In other words, you don't go to war unless you absolutely have to. You don't get in a fight, as Polonius said, unless you really need to. That's what he means, rightly to be great of spirit, to be a great person, is not to stir without great motivation. But, okay, big but, greatly to find quarrel in a straw when honor's at the stake. So what's he saying about honor? Honor is a great motivation. He is saying, if someone challenges or besmirches your honor, no. You go to town with that one. You don't hold back. You defend your honor. Why? Because it's the only thing you really have that's worth anything. If you don't have honor, what good are you to other people? None. Why not?
Because your words weren't honorable.
How are they going to be dependent on you? How are they going to trust you? How are they ever going to look to you for anything? If you tell somebody 100 days in a row, when they ask you for help, yeah, I'll help, and you never show up. What's that going to mean? How stand I then, that have a father killed, a mother stained, excitements of my reason and my blood, and let all sleep? That is, and I let my reason and my blood sleep. I don't rouse myself. You know, it was said on December 8th, 1941, that one of the Japanese admirals said, after Pearl Harbor, now we have roused a sleeping giant. Is it ever good to rouse a sleeping giant? No, you let the giant sleep. That way you go about your own business. Okay? While to my shame, I see the imminent death of 20,000 men. For what? For a fantasy and trick of fame. They go to their beds, they go to their graves like beds. They fight for a plot, whereon the numbers cannot try the cause. That is, the numbers that are going to die cannot give approval to the cause, which is not tomb enough and continent to hide the slain. The piece of ground they're going to die for isn't even large enough to bury the 20,000 dead, Hamlet is saying. this time forth my thoughts be bloody, or being nothing worth. In other words, I'm going to change. From this moment on, kill Claudius, kill Claudius, kill Claudius. That's all he's going to think about. Okay? Scene 5, back at the castle. A gentleman comes in. And the Queen and Horatio and Ophelia. And Ophelia comes in and we're told she's distracted. What does that mean? She is distracted.
She's thinking about something.
Louder, Paige.
She's crazy.
She's crazy.
Thinking about something else.
She's thinking about something else. Okay, distracted, dis, not against. Tracted comes from tracero, something like that in Latin, which means to draw behind. She's being drawn kind of elsewhere. And she asks, where's the beauteous majesty of Denmark? And the Queen says, how are you, Ophelia? And she replies, and it doesn't make any sense, because she's singing. And the Queen says, what imports this song? That is, what do you mean? He's dead and gone, lady, he's dead and gone. At his grave, at his head, a grass green turf, at its heels a stone, oh, but Ophelia, and she keeps singing. And the king asks her, how are you? And she's like, la-da-da-da-da, la-da, flowers, you know. And Ophelia sings in and out, and she leaves. And she says, before she leaves, I hope all will be well. We must be patient. I cannot choose but weep to think they would lay him in the cold ground. My brother shall know of it, and so I thank you for your good counsel. Why is Ophelia crazy?
Because she knows that they're going to kill Hamlet.
No,
That's
because her father's dead. Notice, we must be patient. What does that mean? We must endure. We must suffer. But I cannot choose but weep to think they would lay him in the cold ground. She's thinking, they're going to put my father in the cold ground, and that's going to make her cry. Why? Because he doesn't like the cold ground, even though he's dead, and isn't really aware of it. So the king says, keep an eye on her. Give her good watch, I pray you. This is the poison of deep grief. It springs from her father's death. Okay? So he says, we've sent for Laertes. And the messenger comes in. And the messenger says, the people, the rabble, are saying, let Laertes be king. And the king's like, whoa, you're going to need to stop this. So Laertes comes in. And what does Laertes say? The queen asks calmly, good Laertes, that drop of blood that's calm proclaims me bastard. Cries cuckold to my father, brands the harlot even here between the chaste, unbesmirched brow of my true mother. The king, Laertes, what's the cause? Why this rebellion that looks so giant-like? Let him go, Gertrude. Do not fear our person. Claudius is standing there going, he can't touch me. I'm the king. There's such divinity doth hedge a king. Yeah, tell that to Hamlet Sr. Right? Where's my father? Dead. Queen, but not by him. He didn't do it. How came he dead? I'll not be juggled with, that is, don't lie. To hell allegiance, vows to the blackest devil, conscience and grace to the profoundest pit. I dare damnation. What's he saying? I'll be avenged. Laertes, if you desire to know the certainty of your dear father, is it writ in your revenge that swoopstake you will draw, both friend and foe, winner and loser? That is, I admit your revenge and all that, but are you going to kill everybody, or do you want to know who actually did the deed? None but his enemies. Well, you know them then. Well, yes. Okay, now you're speaking calmly, like a child and a true gentleman. I am guiltless of your father's death. King just wanted to know, are you going to kill me too? And am most sensibly in grief for it. Okay, they hear a noise. Enter Ophelia. Okay, Hamlet looks at her. And notice, he says a speech before Ophelia even speaks. His speech. Oh, heat, dry up my brains. Tears 7 times salt, burn out the sense and virtue of mine eye. Why? Because Ophelia comes in and she's acting all crazy. And then she starts to sing her song. Okay? She leaves. And the king and Laertes talk a little bit more. And we get scene 6. Horatio is talking to the gentleman, or the sailor, excuse me. And the gentlemen bring letters for Horatio. And Horatio reads the letter from Hamlet. And Hamlet tells him what happened to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. And he says, I'm coming. Scene 7. Notice how Act 4 is now, it's picking up speed. All right? The king sends for Laertes. They talk. He tells them why he sent Hamlet away, and a messenger comes in. And the messenger gives the king a note, and the king reads it. High and mighty, you shall know I am set naked on your kingdom. Tomorrow shall I beg leave to see your kingly eyes. Now your gloss tells you, set naked on your kingdom means unprovided with retinue, that Hamlet's all alone. That's one meaning of it. I think Hamlet is also saying, I'm here. And by that he means, armed or not, we're going to dance, you and I. We're going to have a little meeting. Okay? King says, yeah, it's Hamlet's handwriting, naked. Because the king takes that, okay, without a retinue. Big deal. Did Hamlet leave with a retinue? No. So it's not that he's without followers that's important. It's that Hamlet is saying, I'm going to challenge you. So, the king and Laertes go back and forth. And what do they plot?
Kill Hamlet.
We're going to kill Hamlet. What is Laertes a master of? Fencing. And he's young. Okay? He's younger than Hamlet. Hamlet's, well, by my terminology, being 53, actually he is young compared to me. But Hamlet's not a 20-year-old. We're going to find out how old he is in just a few moments. So, they come up with this plot to poison Hamlet. So we get Act 5. Churchyard. Act 5, Scene 1 is comic relief. Right? Tension's kind of been building, right? We've had Polonius die. We've seen Ophelia now. We haven't actually seen her die. But we've seen Polonius die. We've seen Hamlet sent off to England. He doesn't die. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. So, by the way, let's start this one. Before the play opens, Hamlet Sr., so before, during the play, Polonius, Rosencrantz, and Guildenstern end up among the unliving. And then we get Act 5, and we have the clowns. These are grave diggers. They're digging a grave. Who are they digging the grave for? Ophelia. Okay. What are they talking about?
That she shouldn't get, like, a Christian burial.
Why? Yeah, they're like, why are we digging the grave in the graveyard, in the Christian graveyard? Line 20. Let me back up a little bit. Now, line 20. If this had not been a gentlewoman, she should have been buried out a Christian burial. That is, if she weren't one of the high and mighty, she'd have been buried outside the churchyard in unhallowed, unsacred ground. Why? Because they think she committed suicide. Where thou sayest that? The more pity that great folk should have countenance in this world to drown or hang themselves, more than their even Christian, that is, their equal Christian brothers. So, they keep digging. Talk about Adam and such. Hamlet comes in with Horatio. And the clown is singing. And Hamlet's like, man, this guy's just got no class. Has this fellow no feeling of his business that sings at grave making? That is, somebody's just died. You should, take a little, show some respect. Okay? Horatio, custom hath made it in him a property of easiness. It's like, coroners. Coroners, are having to cut up dead bodies all day long. Well, what do they do between 8 and 4? They go to lunch. You're sitting here, you're ripping out somebody's organs and all this stuff, and look at that, look at the time. You stop, then you go eat, and then you come back. I'd have problems with that. Right? So, the clown, digging, throws a skull up from the ground. Where is he digging? In an old grave. Denmark's small land. You got to reuse graves. And Hamlet says that skull had a tongue in it and could sing once. How the knave jowls it to the ground, as if it were Cain's jawbone that did the first murder. This might be the pate, that is the head, of a politician, like a king. Which this ass now reaches, and one that would circumvent God, that is, a politician who might try to run around the laws of God. It might, my lord, says Horatio, or it could have been a courtier, which could say, good morning, sweet lord, how dost thou? Aye, and even now my lady worms, chapless, and knocked about the mazzard with a sexton spade. Here's fine revolution. Fine revolution. You start off as dirt. God made Adam of the dust of the ground. The name Adam just means red. It refers to the color of the earth. Okay. Clown throws up another skull. Hamlet, well, there's another. Why may not that be the skull of a lawyer? Where be his quiddities now? His quiddities, his fine parsing of individual words, like Bill Clinton in 1998 saying, well, it depends on what the meaning of is. Talking about whether or not he had sex with Monica Lewinsky. Now his quiddities, his cases, his tenures. Why does he suffer this mad knave now to knock him about the sconce with a dirty shovel, and will not tell him of his action of battery? This fellow might, in his time, be a great buyer of land with his statutes, his recognizances, his fines, his double vouchers, his recoveries. He's talking about how people abused their offices when they were alive. Hamlet, is not parchment made of sheepskins? Aye, calfskins too. Well, they are sheep and calves which seek out assurance in that. They are sheep and calves, meaning mindless beasts, if they seek out assurance in what is written on sheep and calfskin. Parchments he's talking about. Okay? Things like deeds of land, lawsuits. Every one of you, assuming you graduate, are going to get a diploma. Diplomas used to be in some schools, they still are, not MTSU. They're still written on parchment. I think like Harvard, Yale, Oxford. Okay? What's he saying? You think what's written on a piece of paper really means anything? Hamlet asked the clown, whose grave is this? Mine, sir. I think it be thine indeed. Why? For thou liest in it. What does he mean by liest? Well, he's in it, but he's also lying. He's telling a verbal untruth because he isn't dead yet. The grave is the person whose body is supposed to recline there. Okay? So they keep talking back and forth. Hamlet says, what man was it dug for? No man, sir. Well, what woman then? Well, none neither. Well, who's to be buried in it? One that was a woman. Because notice, once you're dead, you're really neither man nor woman. What are you? You're carcass. You're a corpse. But rest her soul, she's dead. Okay. They talk about Hamlet. And Hamlet says, how long hast thou been a grave maker? Well, let's see. I came to it the day that our last king, Hamlet, overcame Fortinbras. Well, how long is that since? Cannot you tell? Every fool knows that. It was the very day that young Hamlet was born. He that is mad and sent into England. Why, Mary, why was he sent to England? Well, because it was mad. Shall recover his wits there, or if not, 'tis no great matter. Why? Because it won't be seen there. Everyone there is mad. How came he mad? Well, very strangely. Well, how strangely? Well, even by losing his wits. Upon what ground? Why? Here in Denmark. Hamlet means, why did he lose his wits? And the clown says, well, upon what ground? Well, the ground here in Denmark. I have been sexton here, man and boy, 30 years. How old's Hamlet? He's 30. And he's still a student at Wittenberg?
Struggling.
A struggling student? He's on the 15-year plan? Or is he, I heard somebody call into a radio station, or a guy was talking about an article in the New York Times, and this woman was quoted, and she's described as a 42-year-old student. Okay, and the person reading it said, that tells you a lot. 42 years old, still a student. Is this a professional graduate student? Someone who just doesn't want to go on with life? Talking about Hamlet, by the way. So Hamlet's 30 years old. Hamlet asks, how long will a man lie in the earth ere he rot? Well, faith, if it not be rotten before he dies, as we have many pocky corpses nowadays, that is, corpses with syphilis, which rot more quickly. Well, let's see, 8, 9 years. A tanner will last you 9. Why? Because a tanner works around chemicals that makes his skin rough and leathery like, which makes it hard to decompose. So, the clown hands him a skull and says, this is Yorick's skull, the king's jester, Hamlet. And Hamlet takes the skull, and he says not what everybody says he says. The quotes you'll see on posters are, alas, poor Yorick, I knew him well. No. Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio. A fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times, and now how abhorred in my imagination it is. Right? Hamlet goes on, and Hamlet asks, Horatio, tell me one thing. Well, what is it? Do you think Alexander looked of this fashion in the earth? Who's Alexander?
Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great, conqueror of the known world. By the time he was like 21. Right? Do you think he looked like this when he was dead? Even so. Smelled? Aye, even so, my lord. To what base uses we may return, Horatio? Why may not imagination trace the noble dust of Alexander till it find it stopping a bunghole? What's a bunghole?
Hole in a barrel.
It's a hole in a barrel. Okay? So, why could one not find Alexander as part of the clay that's used in a bung to stop the bunghole? Horatio, twere to consider too curiously. In other words, he's saying two things. Kind of one, it's above my pay grade. And two, I don't really think you want to go there, Hamlet. That's looking at things a little too oddly. Well, no. Not a jot. But to follow him thither, that is, let's look at Alexander. Here you have Alexander over here, and let's follow him. He dies, and he becomes a speck of dust. Alexander died. Alexander was buried. Alexander returneth on the dust of earth. Of earth we make loam. And why of that loam whereto he was converted? Might they not stop a beer barrel? What has he already said about the dead?
They are eaten by the maggots.
When he's talking to Claudius about kings and maggots and a convocation of worms. The body gets eaten by maggots or worms. We take that worm, we bait a hook, we catch a fish, we eat the maggot or the worm. And why of that loam whereto he was converted might they not stop a beer barrel? Imperious Caesar, dead and turned to clay, might stop a hole to keep the wind away. Oh, that earth which kept the world in awe should patch a wall to expel the winter's flaw. But soft, here comes the king. Okay, that soft, here comes the king, is not Hamlet just going, oh look, the king's coming. What else is he doing? Because it's said in the context of the little song that he kind of sings, in the context of talking about Alexander and Caesar. Oh, look, here comes the king. Claudius, at some point, will die. He'll get buried. He'll get compounded with dust. And he might be what? Used as the loam, the earth, to patch a wall. So really, what difference is there between kings and everybody else? And the king comes, and the others. We see Laertes. Hamlet doesn't know what's going on. And he finds out when Laertes says, lay her in the earth. And from her fair and unpolluted flesh may violets spring. I tell thee, churlish priest, a ministering angel shall my sister be when thou liest howling. My sister's going to heaven while you're burning in purgatory. He's kind of essentially, think of this as kind of the burial at gunpoint. You will bury her in the churchyard or you will die. Hamlet, what? The fair Ophelia? And the queen says some things, and Laertes says some things. And Laertes jumps into Ophelia's grave. Why? He doesn't want to live. Father's dead, sister's dead. What does he have to live for? Hamlet. It is I, Hamlet the Dane. The devil take thy soul. Okay? Because what has Hamlet done? Hamlet's jumped into the grave with them. Why? Because he did love her. Even when he said, I love thee not, get thee to a nunnery. Why does he tell her that then?
Part of that.
Part of the act? Why else? Louder?
Keep her safe.
Yes, to keep her safe, for her protection. Because what the hell is going on in Denmark? It's not a safe place for people to be outside. So Hamlet jumps in the grave. Laertes, the devil take thy soul. And Hamlet, the priest not well. That's not a nice thing to say. I pray thee, take thy fingers from my throat. Because Laertes is throttling him. For though I am not splendid and rash, yet have I in me something dangerous, which let thy wisdom fear. Hold on. Hamlet's saying, Laertes, back off. King plucked them asunder. Hamlet, Hamlet. Hamlet, I'll fight with him upon this theme until my eyelids will no longer wag. What's the theme? Who loved Ophelia more? Hopefully they didn't love her in the same way, because that'd be all kind of Oedipus, weird on you. Hamlet, I loved Ophelia, 40,000 brothers could not with all their quantity of love make up my sum. What wilt thou do for her? He's mad, Laertes. Show me. Will it weep? That is, will you weep? Will you fight? Will you fast? Will you tear thyself? Will you drink up isel? Poison. Will you eat a crocodile? I'll do it. You come here to whine? To outface me with leaping in your grave? Be buried quick with her, and so will I. And if thou pray to mountains, let them throw millions of acres on us, till our ground, singeing his pate against the burning zone, make Ossa like a wart. I'll rant as thou the queen. This is mere madness. Is it? Is Hamlet here putting on an act, an antic disposition? Or is he really overcome with grief? So, they get out of the grave. And we get scene 2. Hamlet and Horatio are talking. Hamlet tells Horatio what happened with Guildenstern and Rosencrantz. And he says, line 56, they did make love to this employment. That is, they wanted nothing more than to serve the king. They're not on my conscience. Their defeat does by their own insinuation grow. They signed up for it. They got what they deserve. Okay? So Osric comes in. And Osric says, Laertes is newly come to court, and he and the king would like to see you, and Laertes is challenging you to a fencing match. Okay? Osric, line 126, page 1693. You are not ignorant of what excellence Laertes is. That is, you do know he's pretty good with a blade. I dare not confess that, lest I should compare with him in excellence. But to know a man well were to know himself. Hamlet saying, well, no, because then I would have to compare myself to him. I mean, sir, for his weapon, but in the imputation laid on him by them, in his meed he's unfellowed. That is, Laertes doesn't have an equal. You sure you want to do this? Hamlet, what's his weapon? Rapier and dagger. Dagger in the boot. Rapier to fence with. Well, that's 2, but okay. And Osric tells him what the king has wagered. 6 Barbary horses and a bunch of other stuff. Okay? So, Hamlet goes back with them. And let's see here. Horatio says, you're going to lose. Bottom of 1694. You're going to lose, my lord. I do not think so. Since he went into France, I've been in continual practice. I shall win at the odds. That is, I might not get an out-and-out win, like if it were a boxing match, a knockout. I'll win on points. How do you win points? Well, in fencing, one way, if you strike your opponent in a certain part of the body with the tip, which is has a rubber tip on it, or velveted, okay, that counts as a point. If you strike with the side of the rapier, on part of the body. It has to be specific parts. That is worth another level of points. Okay? Hamlet's saying, I'll get the most hits. So, Hamlet goes in. Now, the part I skipped. What do Laertes and the king do? Louder, Paige. Speak up!
They plan to poison his
Yeah. How? Laertes puts poison on the tip, and he's going to fence without the protective tip on. Okay, so he's got to puncture Hamlet. And what does the king do?
Poison wine.
He puts poison wine in the goblet. He's got a magical ring where he flops the lid and puts the stuff in. Okay? And so Hamlet goes in, and the king says, come, Hamlet, come, take this hand from me. And he puts Laertes' hand into Hamlet's, and Hamlet says, give me pardon, sir, I have done you wrong. But pardon it as you are a gentleman. And what does Hamlet say in this speech? It's the first time in human history we see this legal defense. Look at what he says. What have I done that might your nature, honor, and exception roughly awake? I here proclaim was madness. It's the first insanity defense. Was it Hamlet wronged Laertes? Never Hamlet. If Hamlet from himself be chained away, and when he's not himself does wrong Laertes, then Hamlet does it not. Hamlet denies it. Who does it then? Is madness. If it be so, Hamlet is of the faction that is wronged. His madness is poor Hamlet's enemy. Sir, in this audience, that is in front of all these witnesses, let my disclaiming from a purposed evil free me so far in your most generous thoughts. What does he mean? Let my disclaiming from a purposed evil.
Let me be free of evil.
Yeah, he's saying, I intend you no evil. He's also saying, because what is it that has set Laertes off against him?
To kill his dad.
Hamlet's saying, I didn't mean to kill your father. That was an accident. That was my madness that did that. Okay? Laertes, I'm satisfied in nature. That is, my nature, my blood relation to my father, that's satisfied. Whose motive in this case should stir me most in my revenge. But in my terms of honor I stand aloof, and will no reconcilement, till by some elder masters of known honor I have a voice and precedent of peace to keep my tongue ungored. But till that time I do receive your offered love like love, and will not wrong it. What does Laertes know is about to happen, however? With a poisoned foil. Okay? So, Hamlet says, I'll be your foil. Laertes, in mine ignorance your skill shall, like a star in the darkest night, stick fiery off indeed. And notice they are literary foils for each other. How quickly does Laertes attempt to revenge his father once he hears about it? Very quickly. How about Hamlet? I mean, I spent almost 3 hours yesterday lecturing over Acts 1 through 3. It's going to be close. It's at least 2 hours today. 5 freaking hours, and Hamlet's still sitting there playing tiddlywinks. Laertes, he finds out Dad's dead, and he's doing what? He's coming back from Paris to kick some butt. Okay? So Hamlet says, I'll be your foil. Laertes, quick acting. He doesn't give a lot of thought to this. He just wants to kill the person. Okay? You mock me, sir, know by this hand. Give them the foils, young Osric. So they prepare to play. And the king says, let's put some wine on the table. If Hamlet give the first or second hit or quit in fashion in answer the third exchange, let all the battlements fire off their cannons. I mean, he's saying let the howitzers, roll. If Hamlet gets the first point. And in the cup in union shall be thrown, that is, like a pearl. Give me the cups. So he gets the cups, he puts the union in, which is the poison. And Hamlet says, come on. He challenges Laertes. Laertes, come, my lord. Hamlet, 1. Laertes, no. Judgment. Ostrich, a hit. A very palpable hit. That is, Hamlet says, got you. Did not. He did. So there's drumbeat, trumpets, cannons firing. Yay, Hamlet, you know. King, stay, give me drink. Hamlet, this pearl is thine. Here's to thy health. Hamlet says, no, let me play some more first. They hit. Laertes says, a touch, I do confess it. And the king says, our son shall win. The queen, ooh, he's fat and scant of breath. Well, gee, thanks, Mom. Of course, he's 30, and Laertes is probably in his early 20s. And she says, the queen carouses to thy fortune, Hamlet. And she takes the cup and says, I pray you pardon me. The king, it's the poison cup next day on the ink tray. You know, don't drink. Hamlet, I'm not thirsty yet. She drinks, then she wipes his face, Hamlet's. And the king and Laertes says, my lord, I'll hit him now. I do not think it. And yet 'tis almost against my conscience. Laertes is starting to have second thoughts. And what happens? They meet for the 3rd time. And what happens in the 3rd time? Laertes wounds Hamlet, and then in scuffling, they exchange rapiers, and Hamlet wounds Laertes. And the king says, part them, they are incensed. What does he mean by they are incensed? This is no longer play. Now they're angry at each other. Nay, come again. The queen falls. Ostrich, oh, look to the queen. Horatio, they bleed on both sides. How is it, my lord? How is it, Laertes? Ostrich, Laertes, why, as a woodcock to mine own spring, I am justly killed with my own treachery. They're looking at him, you know, and it's a little flesh wound. There's like a little tiny stream of blood. You're like, come on, man up. How does the queen? She swoons to see them bleed, says the king. Queen, no, the drink, Hamlet, I am poisoned. Villainy, lock the door. Treachery, seek it out. Laertes falls. Okay, notice, Hamlet's been poisoned too. Laertes was struck after Hamlet. It is here, Hamlet, here thou art slain. No medicine in the world can do thee good. In thee there is not half an hour of life. The treacherous instrument is in thy hand, unbaited and envenomed. So when Hamlet struck Laertes, he must have struck him closer to the heart. Then Laertes struck Hamlet. The foul practice hath turned itself on me. In other words, what happened to Laertes?
Yeah, killed by something.
Or, to use the phrase Hamlet uses to describe Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, he's hoist with his own petard. This was his idea, to poison the thing. His own idea causes his own death. Pardon?
And he got himself with it.
Yeah. Well, Hamlet got him with it, but it's his rapier, it's his poison. Here I lie, never to rise again. Thy mother's poisoned, I can no more. The king! The king's to blame. And Hamlet says, and poison? And he stabs the king. Then venom to thy work. And they say, everyone, treason, treason. Are they saying treason, treason because Hamlet's killed the king? No. It's because the king killed the previous king. Oh, defend me, friends, I am but hurt. Hamlet, oh, you're just but hurt? Grabs him, I think, by the hair, pulls his head back, takes the goblet with the wine, and pours it down his throat. think of this as, 17th century waterboarding almost. He is justly served, Laertes says. It is a poison tempered that is mixed by himself. Exchange forgiveness with me, noble Hamlet. Mine and my father's death come not upon thee, nor thine on mine, or on me. Okay? Christ says, if you forgive others their sins, what? They're forgiven. Period. It's not just kind of this metaphorical, well, that's just being nice. He means, here's that book that shall be, so to speak, opened on the last day. Here's sins. Here's good deeds. And if you forgive somebody their sins, and their sins that were written in here get erased. So that they don't add up here. And what has Laertes just said? I forgive you of my father's death. Let not that be held against you. Notice, it's not just the sin you've committed against me that's being talked about. Okay? Nor thine on mine. Hamlet, heaven make thee free of it. That is, I don't hold you responsible for my death. I follow thee. I am dead, Horatio, wretched queen, and you. You that look pale and tremble at this chance, that are but mutes or audience to this act, had I but time, but death's not going to give me. Horatio, I am dead. Report me and my cause aright to the unsatisfied. That is, to the people who are telling stories, who are saying, I'm not really sure. I think there was more going on. He says, Horatio, tell the truth. Horatio, not me, Lord. No, I am more an antic Roman than a Dane. That is, he's going to take the poison and drink it. Why? He's going to die with his Lord. Hamlet, nope. And Hamlet grabs the cup and drinks it. If thou didst ever hold me in thy heart, absent thee from felicity a while, and in this harsh world draw thy breath in pain to tell my story. Remember how Oedipus the king ended the chorus of speech? Call no man happy until what? Until he's dead. Because this world is a world of pain. And they hear noises going off. And what is it? Hamlet says, it's Fortinbras. I cannot live to hear the news from England, but I do prophesy the election lights on Fortinbras. And by saying I do prophesy, Hamlet is essentially saying, well, look at the next half line. He has my dying voice. Fortinbras should be the next king of Denmark. Tell him, more and less. The rest is silence. And Hamlet dies. Fortinbras comes in. And he's like, what the hell is going on? Okay, let's think about this for a moment. Let's erase good deeds and everything so that now we have the stage. We have the king dead. We have Queen dead. We have Hamlet dead. We have Laertes dead. And then who died previously? Polonius, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and Ophelia. 7 people. That's a good revenge tragedy. A lot of dead bodies on the stage. Okay? So Fortinbras comes in and says some things. Horatio tells him, you're going to be the next king. And Fortinbras gets the last words of the play. Let 4 captains bear Hamlet like a soldier to the stage. For he was likely, had he been put on, to have proved most royal. And they never thought about this. But I think a modern film used this image. Gladiator. At the very end, when Maximus dies, having killed Commodius, okay, what happens? His men come forward and they pick him up and they bear him off. For had he been put on, he would have proved most royal, and for his passage the soldiers' music and the rights of war speak loudly for him. Take up the bodies, such a sight as this becomes the field. But here, that is, in a civilized palace, shows much amiss. Go, bid the soldiers shoot. Right? Now, it's often said, Hamlet thinks too much. What does Hamlet say? It's thought that kills resolution. Hamlet says it's his thought, it's his conscience that stops him from acting. Okay? Why does he find avenging his father's death so difficult? Why does he put on the plague, the murder of Gonzago or
To
Mousetrap?
make him feel bad, he will say something first.
Okay, is it to make him feel bad?
Or to make him confess.
If the king confesses, then what does Hamlet have?
Proof.
Proof. Because what might the ghost be doing? Lying. Okay? Lying. In a quote-unquote Christian revenge tragedy, you really always have to suspect a ghost. Because ghosts, quote-unquote historically in literature, aren't necessarily known for being all that truthful. They have kind of ulterior motives. Hamlet Sr. has an ulterior motive. He wants to see his SOB brother dead. What other motive? He wants to get out of purgatory. Okay? So there's always a question. Is the ghost telling the truth or not? Yes, Alex.
How did Rosencrantz and Guildenstern die?
Hamlet
How did they die again?
Hamlet tells Horatio, that he switched the letters that they were carrying to England that said, kill Hamlet. And he switched the letters and wrote in them, kill the bearers of the letters. So they get to England, and England kills them. Okay. Other questions? Okay, let's do the quiz.